tab is open, prints are in. So it might actually be the tiniest bit too windy outside. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is my experience with Squarespace. Squarespace is a website builder, so to say, that has quite an impressive amount of good-looking templates. Quick intervention here. This is not a sponsored video. Nobody here paid me. It's just my very personal opinion as a graphic designer and illustrator using Squarespace and WordPress. Now, to give you a bit of a background, I have a very basic understanding of CSS and HTML. I know how to change colors, I know how to change basic compositions and features, but I cannot build my own homepage. What I'm talking about here is WordPress versus Squarespace. To give you a bit of a comparison, because I think that at the moment are the two big players if you want to build your website. For the very basic of the setup of WordPress, you need to be comfortable with uploading stuff via FTP. So that wasn't all too complicated for me, but if you're not used to FileZilla and moving stuff around and ports and connecting to servers and whatnot, this might be a little bit too complicated for you and you will need some help. And I also had quite a lot of plugins. So there was a slider plugin, there was WooCommerce for the shop, and then there was the very important one called Visual Composer. It's sort of like a clickable basis to manage the content of your website. So you can add text and videos and spacers and lines, contact forms and whatnot. And Visual Composer made it quite easy to set up the page. It's a little bit more complicated and it does take time to get to know, but once you're in it, it's not as hard to arrange your website. If you know what Visual Composer is, you will have a very easy time on Squarespace. They have pre-designed sections of the website that you just have to fill. So setting up your site and adding content is really easy. Very straightforward. Adding pictures, adding videos, adding sliders, very straightforward. On the other hand, WordPress gives you a ton of freedom. If you know what you're doing and if you're into coding, I don't think you will go with Squarespace because there's just so much you can do with WordPress. It's just unlimited. Whatever you can code, you can bring it into the game with WordPress. Now, I'm somebody who's not that much into coding and who doesn't want to take the time anymore to just scramble around the internet and pick code from here and pick code from there and then just mesh it together in this tapestry of a web page that I have. Squarespace doesn't have all the features. You can't touch everything in Squarespace. Well, you could. If you know how to add custom CSS, you actually could code a lot of tweaks and changes into the code, but since I don't want to code, I don't have that freedom there. But there are still a ton of editing possibilities and you can make your design look very different. Who on earth? Anyway, where was I? Yeah, you can make your design look very different from the original template that it started from. So my template was called Stella or something like that. Stella. And here is the original, what it looked like when I started out on Squarespace, and this is what my website looks right now. So you can see there's a lot of adaptability and a lot of possibilities for you to change your website and make it look like the way you want to. The next thing that I find really hard on WordPress is maintenance. It takes a lot of time to find the plugins that work for you and the add-ons, and then you have to put a lot of time into keeping them updated. WordPress automatically updates itself, but the plugins don't. After a year or something, the customer service from the plugin that you paid for runs out. So you have to update the plugins yourself, or at some point you'll run into issues with WordPress. And that is just a lot of time that goes into keeping your page updated and functional that you don't have to put in when you use Squarespace. They have their team to keep their business running and updated. Because what you have to take into consideration is that mobile versions are very important with your website. And not every theme in WordPress is really that good at giving you the really best option on your phone. Squarespace focuses on that. If you upload a picture, they actually save it in 3 different versions. One is for the desktop, one is for the tablet version, and one is for the mobile version. So you as the user don't have to take care of that. There aren't any random bugs that just show up on your website and you don't know how to fix them. They'll do that for you, and their customer service is really, really great. I ran into one problem, and that's the biggest problem that I had with Squarespace so far, and I'll tell you about that in a second, but they answered me within 2 hours. With WordPress, you don't have any support. If you run into a bug, if you run into a problem, you will need to pay people to help you. People as in professional web designers. If you look at Squarespace, at first you might think, wow, they're really expensive. I don't know if I want to give them that kind of money. But if you look at the theme, if you always have to buy and find new plugins, if you have to pay professionals to help you out with your site, you're easily spending the same amount of money on your website in a year. And it's not as good as the one that Squarespace offers you. At least in my personal opinion, and I put a lot of time into my website. Now for the positive thing that WordPress has, that Squarespace has some catching up to do. If you're on WordPress, you know what WooCommerce is. And WooCommerce offers you a lot of options if you have a store and you want to sell either digital or physical products. The best thing that WooCommerce gives you are shipping classes. So for me, mail within the European Union, of course, is cheaper than international. So I had these 2 shipping zones depending on the size of my prints. Smaller prints, of course, were cheaper to mail out than bigger prints. Whatever I dreamt of doing within shipping classes and adding countries to a shipping class, I was able to do. With Squarespace, not so much. Squarespace automatically sets the shipping zone for you. And I wondered how Squarespace was able to determine if the print is a larger print or a smaller print. The dimensions given in the product section did not have any consequences on the shipping. So you basically could choose in the shop between the cheaper shipping for the smaller prints or the larger shipping for the bigger prints as a customer. And I don't want my customers picking their shipping, because who is in their right minds to pay more shipping if you could have less? Just because Squarespace could not determine that that was a bigger print to ship. You can have a workaround with the weight of a product, but that's something that was really kind of a downer. The other thing that is a downer is if you're setting up shipping zones, you have to add each country by hand. Except for the United States, there isn't something like group or a conglomerate of countries. Like with WooCommerce, you could say shipping zone European Union, and all the countries from the European Union would be in the shipping zone. With Squarespace, I had to manually say Austria, Poland, Czech Republic, Spain, all the 12 countries. I had to add them by hand, and then for the rest of the world, add every country except for the EU into the shipping zone, which in itself took me almost 1.5 hours for something that could have taken me 2 minutes. That's something they could fix. On the plus side, Squarespace has an app for your e-commerce. So I could sit outside in the garden and do my shipping and pack everything up and do all the orders from my phone, which is really nice. That's my really quick review between WordPress and Squarespace. I think if you want to save a lot of time and maybe even a little money, you're good to go with Squarespace. If you're somebody who's really into the very smallest details of your website, if you know how to code yourself and how to bug fix, feel free to use WordPress. It's still a very good system. Don't forget, website is open. You can order right now. If you join the newsletter, there will be a very fun coupon within the next newsletter, and I would love to see you there. I don't spam. I send out a newsletter. I don't know. I haven't sent one out in the last half year, so that gives you a clue of how much newsletters I send out. So, thank you so much for watching, and talk to you soon. Mwah!